Well, hello everyone. My name is Greg Way, and for those of you who have just joined, welcome to our Production Planning with Certainty webinar. So over the next 25 minutes or so, myself and Billy Weir are going to show you how Siemens Opcenter scheduling software can help give a company fast answers to 6 typical production problems that could affect your production output and a company's ability to deliver orders on time in any industry. So here are some of the typical tools available we see a company use to help them generate a production schedule based on what made to stock and customer orders the company need to produce for a given particular shift or a day, a week, or any given month. And these tools have served companies well for many years, and providing nothing changes that could affect the production schedule, such as ingredients or materials not in stock, workers not clocked in for a shift or a machine breakdown, then everything is fine. However, if something has happened that affects the production line's ability to deliver to any planned schedule, the business needs accurate "what could we do instead" answers, and they need it fast. And because these tools are not able to give them fast, accurate answers, a business is heavily reliant on people's best guess based on their personal knowledge, their experiences in the production environment. So the same production related issue if you give the same production related issue to several different people, you could get several different answers, which is not ideal for any business, especially when the business needs answers to questions like these that you can see on this slide. And I'll give you just a minute or so just to take a look at these typical questions that Opcenter can help give fast answers to see if you recognize some of them and have been asked them in your business. So what can Siemens Opcenter give a business over and above the traditional ways of scheduling production activities? Firstly, it's important to explain that Opcenter mirrors the timings of activities and processes in the real world, so that when you need to alter a production schedule, you are confident that any change and resulting new schedule presented to the business can be acted upon by your production team in the real world. And for Opcenter to be able to do this, it needs to be fed production related information either manually or from within your MRP or ERP systems, and the sort of data we would need is work orders relating to production orders, materials availability, the time it takes for each operation to be finished, things like that. So Billy and myself are going to show you 6 typical issues that affect the production lines and show you how Opcenter scheduling helps a business decide what to do and when to do it. So here we have the first situation where a shift has started at 6 a.m. and only 2 filling line operatives have clocked in. So Billy, can you show us how Opcenter can help a business very quickly see the potential impact of this on the planned 12-day schedule?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So first of all, you can see on the screen here that we have our process. And so we've got some holding tanks, we've got a pasteurizer, we have some pasteurization tanks, and then finally we have our filling line. And so first of all, we pull all of our data from our ERP system into Opcenter. And so we can see here we have our products, our product routings, we have our bill of materials to support our products, we have our resources, and so these are the physical machines or areas within our factory where the operations will take place. We have our resource groups, which are the groupings of our resources so that Opcenter is able to intelligently choose between the particular resources. We have our secondary constraints, and so these act as our labor or our capacities for our tanks. Our supply table contains our purchase orders for our raw ingredients into our operations. And finally, we have our works orders. And so these are the production orders that will be on our shop floor. And so that covers the data. And so we can view our current production schedule into the Gantt by clicking on this button and entering our sequencer. And so here is our production schedule, what we expect to be able to do for the next 2 weeks. We can look at our schedule statistics, and we can see here that we have 14 late orders and 163 on-time orders, and a total schedule span of 12 days. And so I'm going to refer back to this schedule stats. So I've conveniently highlighted here in a screenshot the relevant statistics. And so we can see our 14 late orders, 163 on time, and 12 days for our schedule span. And so we'll see how each of these issues impact our statistics. And so with that set up, we can discuss our first issue. So I'll close that. So usually we have 5 filling line operators, but for one reason or another, we're down to 3, say. And so we can look at our plot window, and we can see our filling operator. We have a maximum of 5, and we can see the usage of our filling operators over time. So if we go into our secondary constraint calendar, and we go into our filling operator and we create a calendar exception, and we drop this max value down from 0 to 3 for 7 days, from the 10th until the 17th, and we press OK, we can see that this exception has now, this calendar period has now been placed, and we can go back into our plots and see where our capacity has been exceeded by this red shaded region. And so our maximum line for that period has dropped, and so what we're going to have to do is regenerate our schedule to see the impact. And so what I'll do is I'll just go into here, I will remove everything from the Gantt chart, and I will generate the schedule again, now taking into account our reduced filling operator capacity. And so we can go into our schedule stats again, and we can see that we still have 14 late orders, and we still have a 12-day schedule span. And so actually it's not too bad. Having these having 2 fewer operators maybe isn't such a bad thing in this scenario. And we can actually go into our plot. We can actually go into our plots and see that now our constraint is satisfied. So we can go and see our second issue now. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Billy. So interestingly enough, it seems that production line could have potentially been overstaffed. So it may be something that they'd want to look at, as 2 haven't turned up and there's still 3 and they're still producing the same amount. That's another story. So yeah, on the second one we have so yeah, a machine is down, and this time we have had a tank that a quality team have taken offline due to a filling issue, and they need an engineer to come and fix a problem basically. But due to the current site restrictions in place, due to COVID and various other things, and replacement part availability, the tank is not going to be fixed for at least 2 weeks. So Billy, can you show us how we would see the impact of this using Opcenter, that we don't have that tank for 2 weeks, and how we can reroute those orders that were planned to utilize that holding tank that's now down?
Yeah, of course. So I'll go back into our sequencer and I'll just reset, I'll reset our model. So I'll delete this calendar exception here and I'll regenerate our schedule. So we're back to our situation where we have all 5 filling line operators. So if one of the holding tanks has had a breakdown and our on-site engineer has told us that we can't get a replacement part for 2 weeks, just as we modified the calendars for operators, Opcenter allows us to go in and quickly change for the calendar for resources as well. So I can do that by going into the primary calendar resource for holding tank 1 and creating a calendar exception here. And so I'll change the template for the calendar period to be breakdown. I will set the start time to be from the 10th and the end time to be the 24th. And so when I press OK, again, we see this breakdown appear. We can go back into our Gantt chart and we see now that all of the operations that were on holding tank 1 have been pushed out into the future. So what we need to do now is regenerate our schedule so that Opcenter is able to reroute those operations onto the other 2 holding tanks so that all of the constraints are still satisfied. So I'll remove everything from the Gantt chart. I will regenerate, and we can see now that all of those operations that were pushed out into the future have now been rerouted onto holding tanks 2 and 3. And where we have where we're back to having our holding tank 1 repaired, we have then been able to put those operations back onto that resource. But what has happened to our schedule statistics? Well, let's go in and take a look. We can see now that we have 107 late orders and 70 on time, whereas we started with 14 late orders and 163 on time. So this is a pretty significant issue for our factory. And our schedule span has increased from 12 days to 17 days. So we have an extra 5 days of production to do the same amount of work, just because our holding tank 1 has had a breakdown. So we can now move on to our third issue.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. And because Opcenter's linking to a business system, your ERP or MLP, and pulling that information down, usually customers want it either once or twice a day. They're able to see potential ingredients or material shortages before they are planned to be consumed in any given day's production activities. And now, Billy, as this demonstration is based on food, can you show us how Opcenter shows the impact of ingredient shortages on the planned schedule?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Greg. So let's reset our model again. And so I'll just delete this breakdown from our calendar and I'll regenerate our schedule. So we're back to the situation where we have all of our filling line operators, all of our tanks are operational. So we've been notified by our supplier that our shipment of ingredients is going to be delayed by several days. What impact does this have on our current production schedule? So it's possible to color the Gantt according to the operations product property. We can see here in the operation properties, we can change this to be by product. And so now we have these purple products here are all of the operations which require ingredient A. And so if we go into our supply record for our purchase order of ingredient A, and we change this to be to the 15th, when we have been notified by our supplier that we'll be able to get our ingredients, and we hit OK, all of these purple operations on holding tank 1 have now got a green bar above them. And so that is telling us that our material is being used when it isn't available. And so what we're going to have to do now is regenerate our schedule so that the new material availability dates are considered. So I'll just do that. And so we can see now all of those purple operations have been pushed out to the 15th, but instead of leaving a gap, Opcenter has been able to bring other orders forwards. And so we can check our schedule statistics. and I'll just bring this up here. And so compared with our original, where we had 14 late orders, now we have 27 late orders. And so some of the previously late orders may now be on time, but some of those purple operations might be causing others to be late. And so now we would want to go in and drill down and get a hold of our customers so that we're not disappointing anybody, or at least we're keeping them up to date. So now we can go on to our fourth issue. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Billy. So the scenario here is that a customer who is, for this demonstration, providing supplies for hospitals has had a run on a product line, and they need to get their original order that's been placed with the company. They need to get the delivery date brought forward to meet the surge in demand. So Billy, again, can you show us how we can prioritize a customer's order?
Yeah, of course. Cheers, Greg. So I will reset our Gantt again so that all of our purchase orders are arriving when we expected them. And I will just regenerate our schedule. So just as before, where we colored the Gantt according to product, we can also color based on the customer. And we can see here, this is our customer coloring, and we can highlight our orders for just our key customer. And so we can see, if I move the Gantt a little, some of these highlighted operations have got a red bar above them. And so that is telling us that these orders are going to be late. So the customer has had a run on a product and needs to get their orders rushed through production. And we've decided as a business that this customer is a priority. So we want to bring their orders forwards. And one method of achieving this within Opcenter is to schedule the orders for this customer ahead of everything else. So I will remove everything from the Gantt chart, and we can go back into here and highlight just our key customer orders. And with those highlighted, we can then generate our schedule. And so we can see here, only the orders for our key customer are now placed onto the Gantt chart. And so now what we need to do is generate our schedule with all of the other orders. And so I'll cancel the highlight. I will then hit generate schedule, and we can see now that all of our other production orders have been placed onto our schedule. But crucially, our key customer orders are ahead of everything else, and they are on time. So what we can do here is go into our stats again, and we can see we have 36 late orders. And if we compare that with our 14, that again is another increase. But as a business, because we've decided that our key customer should be above everything else and they have no late orders, then we have achieved our goal. And so then it's just a case of mitigating other risks associated with the other late orders. So now we can move on to our fifth issue.
Yeah, thanks. So how can Opcenter help a company manage shop floor efficiency, you may be asking? Well, let's take a look at a couple of scenarios that could happen in your organization. The first one is some of your staff have been in contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID, and therefore they need to isolate for at least 10 days. This means you potentially need to get temporary staff in who need time to be trained on the job by co-workers. Another scenario is that a key worker leaves your organization and you need to retrain another member of staff or recruit to fill that vacancy with a new starter. This all means, or these examples all mean, that productivity could go down as a new member of staff gets up to speed. And interestingly, it could also affect the person who is training them's output as well in terms of their efficiency. So for instance, if your normal run rate output on a particular production line is, say, I don't know, 20 boxes an hour, you may wish to modify your company's expectation in terms of output whilst new starters get up the learning curve. So Billy, can you show us how you can easily tweak Opcenter to reduce efficiency of a particular work group or a work cell so a business can see the impact this has on the overall equipment efficiency and the revised production output for the business, or what they can expect?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So I'll go back into our sequencer and I'll just regenerate our schedule once again. And so we're back to our original situation. So it's possible to see how reduction in OEE due to training new staff will impact delivery dates within Opcenter by changing the efficiency of the calendar states that are applied to the resources. And so I've created a calendar state here called training that has a 75% efficiency of the baseline efficiency. And so what we do is we can create a calendar template using this calendar state and apply that to our primary resources. So if we go into our primary calendar templates and see this training filling operator, we have our 5 days a week of training followed by 2 off-shift periods. And so we can apply this calendar template to our filling line 1, and I will change this from working week to training filling operators. And so when I press OK, our filling line 1 will now be using that calendar template. And so all of our operations process times will have extended. And so to take this into account, I will need to regenerate our schedule. And so I'll remove everything from the Gantt chart. I will regenerate. And we can see now there's the filling line 1, the operations are slightly sparser because it's better to place them onto the other filling lines where the operations will complete quicker. And what is the impact that this has had on our schedule stats? So we can view our schedule statistics here, and I'll open up the original as well. So we've gone from having 14 late orders to 20 late orders due to having one of our filling lines operated by someone who's being trained, and they're at this lower efficiency. And so maybe they're not quite at 75% efficiency, maybe they might be slightly higher, but as a best guess, we see that we have this increase of 6 late orders. So now we can move on to our final issue.
Yeah, just going back on that one, Billy. So as an individual, people are different. So it may be the case that somebody gets up the learning curve a lot faster than others, and then a scheduler can then go in and modify that sort of initial projection and then rejig the schedule again just to give the business more accurate outputs. Yeah, that would be easily done. So on to our next one. Yeah. So an order inquiry, yes. Lastly, a customer sales rep has taken a call from a customer who has asked if they were to order 200 pallets of a certain product, can we do it and deliver on a certain date? So the sales rep now needs to know if he can say yes or no to his customer's request in terms of the number of pallets that they're looking for to be delivered, and would it hit their timeframes? So in terms of delivery dates. So over to you, Billy.
Thanks, Greg. So again, I'll just change our filling line 1 back to the normal working week, and I'll regenerate our schedule. So we're back to our original situation again. So we've had a call from our sales department about a potential order from a customer, and we want to see if and when we have spare capacity to schedule this order. Well, Opcenter has a tool that allows us to create an order to see if we can fit this potential order onto our current production schedule. So this is called an order inquiry. So if I go into here and I can enter the information here, so I will say potential order, and we want to manufacture 100 units of our product A. And so once I press OK, and it says some operations could not be completed. So I'm going to confirm this inquiry. I'm going to assign it materials. I'm going to try and drag this onto our Gantt chart. And so if I just drop this here and I right click and I place on the plan board all subsequent operations, we can actually see that this has been able to be placed onto our schedule. There is a lot of white space, which is telling us again that we have a lot of spare capacity, so it does make sense that we have been able to do this. And so what I can do is I can highlight this order, and we can see exactly when the route it will take through the shop floor. And if I click on this final operation here, we can see that we have an order end of the 15th of the 1st at 12:20. So we can get back onto our back on the phone to our sales department and confirm that order with them. And so that is that concludes our 6 issues.
Thanks very much, Billy, for showing us those. So to summarize, a properly configured Opcenter software installation will provide fast, accurate answers to day-to-day questions that are constantly being asked by a company who are wanting to run as efficiently as possible and maximize profits.